Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Swipe and the City. It is Marie here.
And you've got Michelle in the studio.
And we've got a very special guest today. Well, all of our guests are very special, as we say, but she is extra special. Because
I am.
She's actually going to teach us a few things today. And we are so excited for the start of Scorpio season. So, Megan, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Really excited to be here and that we have 3 M's on the pod today. My name is Megan. I am coming as your I guess, Basic Witch Correspondent. I actually did steal that. There's a podcast called Basic Witches. If you are interested in more of this stuff, I was going to plug them at the end. So I can't take complete credit for that. But I will be here to talk to you all about astrology, how your astrological signs and placements impact your relationships, as well as compatibility.
That was like the best intro I think any guest has ever given us.
Yes!
That was awesome. And if you don't mind, tell us a little bit more about just like yourself, who you are as a human being.
Yeah,
And a witch.
Absolutely. So I have been, actually just left Austin, Texas, moved to New Orleans. That just feels relevant, feels like a very witchy city. I am a sales manager by day. I'm a Capricorn, since we're going to get into astrology. All about the money. And let's see, I've got a basset hound. I also dance quite a bit. I think it's a really, really good way to move your body and express yourself. This is, I would say, more of like a side interest, a hobby. I got really into astrology as a way of getting to know myself better. And I think that that's ultimately what it's an amazing tool for. But that's how I got into it. And I just am a person that loves knowledge too. So once I got the itch and started learning more about myself, there's a ton to know once you kind of scratch the surface. And so I just want to keep learning.
Love that. So since we are a dating podcast, would you be open to sharing your relationship status?
Yes, I am single.
Ooh. So we'll be sharing her handle, slide into her DMs if you're into basic witch shit.
Yes.
Well, I think with that being said, I think kind of high level overview, since you already touched on how you can use it to get to know yourself.
Yeah. Well, before we jump in, what are y'all's signs?
Scorpio.
Times 2.
Nice. Okay, I love it. So Scorpio season, very fitting. Scorpios and Capricorns actually get along well, so we are in a good... I'm going to keep this focused on romantic relationships, but some of this can also obviously apply to chosen familial relationships, to relationships with your friends. And again, a lot of it, like your relationship with yourself. So just starting really basic, I would say that is one thing to keep in mind. If you really want to get to know how does astrology make me make certain relationships more or less compatible, it really starts with an understanding of your chart and your placements and how you show up in relationships, right? And I'm sure that, because that's going to tie into a lot of other things. Attachment styles, obviously nurture is a big part of how we show up in relationships, but the study of astrology, it's really about understanding yourself, and that's going to be the number one focus in seeing how you relate to other people. But really basic, what we all know, what we just gave, Capricorn and double Scorpios over here, is our sun sign. So that is based on where the sun was on the day that you were born. The sun moves through the 12 signs, and that's kind of what everyone knows when they think of what's your sign for astrology. They know their sun sign. So to anyone out there who does want to expand their knowledge, I think that one of the most important things that you can do is find your moon and your rising. Now for that, you do probably need your birth certificate or a good enough relationship with your parents to be able to text your mom and ask what time you were born. But it's on a long form birth certificate. It'll say what time you were born. You also need to know where you were born. So the moon is really the sun is kind of like your hardwiring. That's who you are, is your sun sign. Your moon is how you view yourself. and your rising is how others view you, essentially, or how you show up.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I've never, so I feel like we've maybe on past episodes talked about, because like you'll start getting into like horoscope things, and I'm like, I know I'm a Scorpio, and that's about the extent of it, but yeah, I've never heard it like described or presented that way. So that's really, really interesting to think about.
Yeah, and I think it really does kind of round out that picture, right? Because there'll be times too when you're reading and you're like, oh, I'm reading about this quality of a Scorpio, and like that doesn't really sound like me. It may be that once you factor in like your moon and your rising, then you can understand why that one quality of Scorpio didn't apply as much to you. And then there are also some people who it's not different. So when someone's when someone's sun is the same as their rising, it's essentially saying like what you see is what you get, which doesn't mean there's no depth there. It just means that they're not ever presenting a different version of themselves.
My sun and my rising are both Scorpio.
I was going to guess that. Actually, I was going to say you're probably one of those because you present immediately like a Scorpio.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's such a nice compliment.
I'm a Scorpio rising too, which is also probably part of why we get along.
I love that. My moon is a Gemini moon.
Oh, same.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Did we just become best friends?
I think so.
And Michelle, we need to talk to Mom and find out when you were born. So that's why I just texted her.
So we might get in a little bit into Michelle's birth chart on this pod.
Whoa. And then I'm going to find true love.
Yes.
That's
exactly how that works.
Yeah, once I know my moon rising, sun falling, and that's it. It's all it takes. Just walk around yelling it.
Yep, that's right. It's like who wants it? I will say for me it is led to further my singledom, but I was in relationships I came off of I was a marathon monogamist. I went from serious relationship to serious relationship over a span of almost 9 years. So that's where part of this like search for self-exploration comes in. And I've also realized as a Capricorn sun, Gemini moon, Scorpio rising, like that's a lot for another person to handle. So I'm trying to get a handle on it myself first. I know we're getting kind of deep. I want to back it up and stay in talking about the sun sign, but one thing that is relevant to keep in mind is like if you've ever been initially really, really attracted to someone, and then as you kind of get to know them, it starts to be like, wow, this is not at all how I thought this relationship was going to go. Your moon is probably very compatible with their rising, and you were attracted to what you initially saw in them. And then as you start to peel away those layers and see who they actually are, you might not be as compatible with their sun.
I was just going to say that really explains a lot in my life.
That's really interesting because I feel like that happens for me often with like friendships. Not as I stare at you. No, but but I feel, and maybe that's not necessarily related to this, and we can like go down a different path, but like I'm just friends with everybody off the bat, and then once there's like a little bit more of that depth, I find that I'm like less compatible with them as friends. So I don't know if it's related to this or that's just because I'm friends with everybody off the bat, and then I'm like, oh well, now we're actually getting to know each other as people.
Is there anybody that you don't like right off the bat?
It's rare. Someone's like really bitchy to me for no reason. I'm like, excuse you. So, but it's pretty rare. I mean, I don't know. I want to be friends with everybody. I'm the opposite of no new friends. I'm like, new friends. Yes, come over to our table. It's fine.
And then there's me, and I'm like, no, I don't know about you.
See, yeah, that almost makes me even more interested to know your rising, because I wonder how much that speaks to, like, you may have a more kind of outgoing, like Sagittarius or like some sort of fire in your rising, which like, so you can kind of mix in with everyone, but then Scorpios do tend to be a little bit more withholding when it comes to the deep stuff. So it may even be an element of You're super open with everyone, and then once it comes to the point of getting deeper, only so few people make it into the depths. Yeah.
Yup. I wish we were recording video on this, because like I feel like our reactions have just been like, man, like I might put it on pause.
Yeah. So maybe definitely for the next one. I was voice recording ready today with my face. So, but yeah, so bringing it, like I said, kind of bringing it back, because I know that everybody listening at least knows what their sun sign is, right? Or can very easily go look it up. Refinery always has fun little charts. You can find out what type of pie you are based on your sun sign. So
important.
Very important. Yeah. They had a thing for a little while where they were like really ragging on cancers, and I think Cancer, in this exact post that I'm thinking of, Cancer was just an empty pie crust.
Wow.
I know. Somebody had just broken up with a Cancer, I'm certain.
Oh yeah.
But if in your sun it breaks down into elements, so everything that we're talking about here, right? So we were talking about stars, the planets, and so it breaks down into fire, earth, water, and air. Water signs, Scorpios are water signs, and actually a little more context on those elements. Like water tends to rule the emotions, air, thoughts, fire, obviously like more kind of your physical, people who like a lot of change, like that's a hallmark of a fire sign. And then earth, you're more tangible. That's why you'll see more earth signs in like, I would say traditional jobs, but let's rephrase that to say jobs that are rewarded by capitalistic structures, right? Is like more so where you'll find, yes, a lot of salespeople, a lot in leadership, a lot of things related to, the tangible physical world related to money as well. And so, but each one of those elements, if you think about how they work in the natural world, fire, earth, water, and air, they play with each other in a specific way. So fire needs air to be able to grow and breathe. So a fire sign and an air sign are going to be really compatible. Whereas fire and water together, what do you get? You either get extinguished fire or you get hot water, boiling water, which in terms of a relationship, you don't always want overheated emotions or an extinguished fire, right? So it might be really interesting initially, but over time it can either kind of die out or stay heated in the passionate part that's heated and not always where we want our relationship to stay. I'm realizing I should probably tell y'all which signs are which. Mm-hmm. So water signs, Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer. Your earth signs are Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus. Your air signs are Aquarius. A lot of people think Aquarius is a water sign. Yeah, because of aqua, but it's an air sign. So Aquarius, Gemini is also an air sign, and Libra. And then your fire signs remaining, that's going to be Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, fire signs tend to be very passionate, go well with the air signs, Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. And then your earth and water, right? If you think about how plants grow, needing a lot of water to grow vegetation. And I mean, water even shapes the earth in really interesting ways, how rivers build canals. And so air, water, and earth signs do tend to be more compatible as well. So Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo compatible with Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces. Yeah.
That's, I mean, for me, I'm like seeing the dots connected here. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm curious, just general example. Are there any situations that you can think of where your sign was either yes or no, like either compatible or not with somebody, even a friend? Mm-hmm.
For me, yeah, because the other thing I'll say too is like you also tend to be pretty compatible within your own sign, and for earth, like, or within your own element, right? And so like, but for earth signs, that's even extra true. So when I look back on my relationships, they have all either been with Capricorns or Virgos. Even though for any astrology buffs out there, we can all agree like Virgo men tend to be the worst. And my dating history also confirms that. But I have had recently a very, initially very passionate, but ended in a lot of scorched earth relationship with the Sagittarius. That looking back on it, it was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Why there was just a lot of immediate like passion and attraction, and then it for me, someone who does like things still like very grounded in reality. Eventually it just the passion turned into heatedness all the time.
Would you ever, upon finding somebody's sign out, would you ever like put a pause? Like if you were on like a first or second date, would you ever be like, I don't know, maybe we're not going to pursue this one?
Not if I actually was into them. Like, so if I was like, if I'd gone on like a first or second date and I was like, I kind of, and then I found out maybe that it was like a really uncompatible sign and I was already on the fence, I might take that and say, probably not worth it. But honestly, really no. Like at the end of the day, there might be people listening that are like, but I have a great relationship and I am an air sign and, my significant other is an earth sign. And that's absolutely possible. I would say though, I also don't know that you should do exactly what I would do in relationships. I tend to either like jump all the way in, you're living with me in a week, or I didn't ever save your phone number and I already forgot your name. Like I'm very hot or cold.
I love this because we like to promote how good we are at giving advice as single women.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And when we bring like our kind of, but I don't know, our third Scorpio. I was gonna say our third wheel, but but also our friend Paul, who does the Shit Guys Say series with us, he's also Scorpio. So it's like, to me, it's just hilarious because we're all three like, well, actually, you're not perpetually single. I'm perpetually single. But you had a blip on the radar.
Yeah.
But also, to your point, please do not listen to this podcast and then go ask your husband of an opposing sign for a divorce. full disclaimer. Yeah. Everything should be taken with whatever the equivalent of a grain of salt is in this context.
A grain of stardust.
A grain of stardust. Yeah, there it is. But yeah, so please don't DM us and be like, y'all said to do this. Now what do I do? Like, no, you're on your own, boo-boo.
Yeah. Now, I can see that going and finding out more about your chart placement and your significant others might help you understand maybe why sometimes conflicts happen. Because even within those compatibilities, again, if you go back to thinking about how these elements actually interact with each other in nature, right? We said that typically like fire and air, good together, earth and water, good together. Whereas like fire and water, sometimes that can extinguish. But even sometimes earth and water, right? Like too much water on the earth, well, New Orleans knows it's not a good thing. If the water is depleted and there's too much earth where there should be water, right? That can also, in a sense, not be a good thing. And a lot of times your earth signs stay more in the logical brain. Water rules emotions, and water signs want to talk about emotions. And so you might see that and learn, okay, there are times when maybe my partner and I have conversations and we're not speaking the same language, and maybe it's because I'm wanting to approach the problem logically and they're wanting to talk about how they feel about it. And sometimes just knowing that, then you can work on let's differ. That's a big thing I have to do sometimes with my friends who are, I'm just also kind of like a fixer. I used to be an attorney. Maybe I should have said that when I introduced myself. Law school like really actually changes your brain so that you approach every problem like looking for the solve or the whatever. And it's like I have to sometimes back up and say, are you talking to me about this to help like strategize what we do, or just like you just want to talk? And the latter is fine, right? Like, but it's good for me to understand so that I don't go into fix it mode when my friend is like, no, I just want to tell you about my day, So I think understanding those things, yes, don't go file for divorce, but hopefully it can help you avoid filing for divorce.
I was going to say, I'm like, I feel like that's like explaining about emotions. Yeah, I feel like that's why me and Taylor Swift guy might not have been the match.
Taylor Swift guy, that's interesting. Do you know what his sign was?
Cancer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of water.
Yeah. And we both were very emotional. Michelle's just like staring at me.
It's just been I've was on a lot of Zoom calls today.
Yeah.
I'm just like readjusting to seeing people in person versus like staring at my screen. No, I think that's really interesting, and that makes me think about how like love languages, right, are such a big thing. But the kind of key piece of it, or the key takeaway is learning how you want to be loved and how someone else does, and just understanding that. It's like in the professional world, when we learn about, again, just like standard personalities and communication styles and like leadership styles, really even just having a better understanding of what your needs are, again, whether it is based off of love language or sign or element, helps you to better communicate what you need, and then also like adjust your style as well, which is important, right? Compromise in any relationship is important.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when my boss was talking to me, I'm like, trying to move towards leadership and all that stuff, and working pretty closely with my manager. And he is always kind of checking in on what my weaknesses are. And they usually revolve around my attention span and just getting too emotional about things. So, and like knowing myself and needing to take a step back to be like, okay, well, all right, this agent said it this way, but like they don't really mean it. It's just a text message. You don't need to get upset about this.
Well, and so that's an interesting way that I want to talk more about another way to classify the sun signs that can also play into, again, this is less like if you're one classification, you're not compatible with another, more of what type of friction might there be in the way you communicate. But just touching a little on the moon again, some of that comes from your Gemini moon. And I do know intimately about this, but so again, the moon is more of like your inner monologue, right? It's the kind of the way you see yourself or the way you think about yourself. So it is important in relationships, because I know I have done that. Like, so if your moon's an air sign, you probably do spend a lot of time what-ifing yourself in your head, right? And spending too much time in your thoughts and in your head can sometimes lead you to be in a reality that's not other people's reality, right? So as you were just saying, like having to remind yourself, don't let the voice in your head read this text message in a certain way, and then that triggers your other emotional responses, right? So knowing your moon sign is also something that can help, again, you realize like how you're showing up in that relationship, because it's a lot of times that inner monologue too that's going to be part of you realizing or deciding in some ways like how compatible you are, or feeling out how compatible you are with another person.
You mentioned attachment styles too, and I read it. Did you read Attached by any chance, the book?
I have not read that.
Fascinating, really easy read. But it does remind me, because like I'm anxious avoidant. And I mean, obviously there's like things about the way that I was brought up that I think influence that. But the more we're talking about it now, the more I'm kind of seeing some of like the Scorpio and the Gemini that are also kind of contributing to those emotions, and then like the withdrawal.
Yeah. Well, and here's the wild thing too, is like when you get really, really deep into this, and I'm not going to go this far into it, it's like this is definitely some of the stuff I'm still learning. But there are also the placement of other planets. Like when we talk about your birth chart and why it's important to say, okay, where were you, what day and what time, is it's going to tell you exactly where all of the planets were. And you also have houses, and so there's it's like an iceberg where like you start with like, oh, I'm a Capricorn, and then it's like, oh no, there's way, way, way more stuff to know. As you start to read through all of that stuff, like when people say it's written in the stars, like I'll just put myself on blast. Like I have an anxious, like the attachment style, not avoidant. The opposite one, like
maybe just anxious.
Yeah, just anxious. Okay.
secure, anxious, avoidant, and then anxious avoidant.
Okay. Yeah.
And most people are actually secure, shockingly, but most of those people are in relationships.
Yeah.
Not shockingly.
No, I have an anxious attachment style. So I'm often with people with an avoidant attachment style, right? But there's a lot of, and a lot of that comes from, I don't know my biological father. My mom, love my mom, hope she never hears me make this joke, but she gets married and divorced for sport. No, she's married to a great person now. But a lot growing up, there were men in and out. There were people in and out. We moved in and out of different houses. And so I can see how, like, what I know about attachment styles speaks to all of that. There's a lot in my birth chart, though, about, I have a lot of Sagittarius in the rest of my chart. And that is the sign of the traveler, of constantly, like, wanting to refresh, restart, birth and death. A lot of that in Scorpio, too. But so there's a lot of instability and seeking approval from outside sources, even that's written throughout that, so that it's almost like challenges in a way those nurture versus nature conversations, but all that stuff is definitely still relevant.
Interesting.
There is no tie-in though with like attachment styles and your sign, to my knowledge.
Not literally,
right?
Anyway,
yeah.
It is fascinating though. I think it's interesting because astrology gets such a bad rep for just being bullshit. Which I think, I mean, if you're reading, newspapers don't exist anymore, but like you're reading your horoscope in the newspaper. I mean, those are so vague. Like, I can understand why, like, people are like, oh, like, you're a Scorpio, that doesn't mean shit. But, like, because I just think because we're relating this to, like, real traits,
right.
I think it's more applicable than people think. Maybe that's my bias showing, though.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see what you think about that, because I know you're not as into the astrology.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's based on this conversation. I definitely now am like interested in doing some more research for sure, because even like what you mentioned about, with work being like emotional and then having to take a step back, and I was like, shit, I was just thinking that this week about how I process feedback, because I'm like, I've been forever, I'm like, oh, I'm great with feedback, constructive criticism, whatever. And then over the past several months, I'm in a new role. I have a new manager, I guess over the last year. But I realize I'm reactive first. And I'm, whatever that reaction is based on how the rest of my week is going, but I'm like reactive first. And then it settles. And then I'm like, I have a logical, like, internal response to it. And so it's funny because there are some of those types of things where I think that digging more into this type of stuff, I might realize like, oh, those are traits, and here are some other traits that I haven't like noticed that I have, but I'm like, oh, okay. So I think it's really interesting. I would say like I take everything with a grain of salt. Like I definitely don't think it's like, I definitely think there's truth to it and there's like elements to it, but I'm not someone who's gonna like make life decisions based off of it.
Well, I think the same can be said for like really any kind of like psychological principle too, like attachment styles,
right? Not
also like, the, I don't know, I was going to say godly truth, but you can also argue that that's not real. Right. So, but you know what I mean.
Well, and I think because astrology is a pseudoscience, but a lot of what that means is that there aren't theories that we can prove.
Right.
But they're also, we can't disprove them either.
Right.
So that's why it's not bullshit. Can I say bullshit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Dope. Yeah. It's that it can't be put through the scientific method of here's this theory, can we prove it or not, which makes it a pseudoscience. And that's like, but at the same time, we do know that the moon pulls the tide, right? So if the moon that just orbits the earth has that much power that it controls the tides, like, and I think that here's how I think about it and how I explain it to people who are just straight up like, I don't buy any of this. How do you, because I think there are some people too who like know, okay, yeah, I went to law school, I used to be an attorney. I am a very like take the logical approach. And so I have people that are surprised, like sometimes by how much I'm into this. And it's like, well, look, the moon pulls the tide. I think that we can all agree, whatever you're like religious, whether you think it's God or whatever, that the fact that human beings, and particularly women, bring life onto this earth is a miracle, right? So if we know both of these things are true, I think that it makes sense to me that where the moon and all the other planets were at the moment that miracle happened might be relevant. So that's just kind of how I look at that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that we don't understand about like the solar system, and because I mean it is so far away and it's so large. So I mean, yeah, again, like I think it makes perfect sense in my totally biased opinion here. But have you now that we're kind of touching on explaining this to people who may not be believers, have you ever run into that? Like, have you ever been out with somebody or even a friend who maybe just like they're not buying it from you, they don't want to hear about it, they like maybe think less of you from it?
Yes, usually my first course of action, if I've gotten into this conversation, I can tell that I'm talking to somebody that's like maybe making fun of me or something. I'm like, do you know what time you were born? And I'm popping into Cafe Astrology, great app, or you can just go to the website and I'm pulling up their birth chart and then I just start reading them to a filth. And I'll read because it'll detail like your sun, moon, and rising in there, and that a lot of times makes people be like, oh wait, what? Can you send that to me? I also. Now, at a certain point, like, I can also just stop talking to somebody, so.
Yeah. Have you, like, kind of piggybacking on that, have you had, like, she was kind of saying with a friend or whatever, but, like, have you been on a date, or do you, I guess, maybe to take a step back, do you ever use, like, dating profiles, in your single, like, online dating profiles?
So, okay, I've been debating this since I'm moving, so I'm glad that we're getting onto this because so my last relationship, we went back and forth being in an open relationship at times, and he was on the apps a lot, and it's like sometimes I tried it, but part of it is that's not really like why I wanted the open relationship. I was just trying to be like, well, he's doing it, so I'm going to do it. I've never loved the apps. Like, I feel like the people that I ended up swiping on, once I would meet them, I was like, oh, I don't, like, your pictures look enticed me, but I don't feel anything. Like, I like meeting people in the wild, I guess I'll say more so. But I also, at the time, thought, like, my profile was like a joke, like the line, like my about me, I was on Tinder, and I had seen his Tinder and some of like, and I noticed like every profile looked the same, so I made my whatever the actual like written
bio.
part, yes, bio is the word I was searching for. It said something like it was a joke, it was sarcastic, which I thought that will attract people who like have my same sense of humor. But what it said was, I hate adventures, I'm here for a hookup, and I'm just like every girl that you've ever met. Because I felt like every profile that I saw was like, I'm not here for hookups, I love adventures, and I'm not like other girls. So, I think it said I'm an amalgamation of every girl you've ever met. So I was like, this is great. I am showing that I'm sarcastic, and I'm screening out people who don't know what the word amalgamation means.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was like, what a word for Tinder.
Yeah.
But it did not work. I just got a lot of people who seriously thought that I was there for hookups. So, we also, and so that kind of, yeah, I just, and like, I don't know, I haven't maybe found my app, because Tinder, I would just get a lot of, and then I was like, all right, maybe Tinder's not the place for jokes. And then Bumble, you have to get on it every day. And I was like, no, I want like Sunday scaries, scroll through the apps, and then maybe like Wednesday, if I'm like, I don't have plans tomorrow, let me meet someone, like that's what I want to do. And then I would get back on and all my matches were gone. But I've thought about trying it for New Orleans, and I would definitely put my sign in my bio.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Hinge. And on Hinge, I think, can you put it in your...
I think so.
I want to say you... maybe that's Bumble, which I'm not on.
Bumble for sure.
I think it's Bumble. You can actually like have that as one of... It's like height, job, sign, which is interesting. Yeah, mostly I was curious because I was curious if you'd had experiences of like being on the apps and then having people, I don't know, either be really, really into it or be like assholes about it. Because we see all the time guys that are like, they have all these prompts where they're like, if you're gonna talk to me about your sign, swipe left. Like, if you like don't match with me if you're a girl who likes astrology. It's like, dude, fuck you.
A Dum Dum Beach was actually something that we saw on we were talking about it on one of our Shit Guys Say episodes. So I guess that's now what I just like call astrology girls. Because I think I also am sarcastic. I think it's funny. But yeah, I can confirm you cannot add your sign to Hinge.
Okay.
But we like Hinge, just so you know.
Okay.
For you don't have a bio. You do like it's a Q&A. So you're prompted with something because personally, I think writing a bio is difficult. And that's why they literally all look the same, my theory.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and there are probably actually prompts that are related to astrology. So you would like fit it in naturally. And the other thing, like Hinge, you don't have necessarily a time limit. Although, didn't we see a guy who's like, if you don't, oh yeah, we talked about this. Well, it'll probably be a future episode that comes out because of the order. But yeah, his response to something was like, I unmatch if you don't message me within 2 days. That's like,
so that reminds me of, and this is actually a guy that I work with that gives me a hard time for the astrology stuff. He says it's stupid. I'm like, don't you do Bitcoin? But he was telling me one time that he doesn't like he prefers, like, I prefer to meet women in person, and then like if I find out they're on the apps, I won't go on a date with them anymore. And I'm like, but don't you find out they're on the apps from being on the apps? Like, what? And he's like, well, yeah, like I'm on there to know if they're on there. I was like, this is just, you would make fun of people who are into astrology.
I feel like he needs help. So maybe we can like schedule some time. I don't know. But like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It sounds like maybe he just isn't that serious. But, you know, we're not here to analyze him. What's his sign?
I don't know. I need to find out.
Yeah, find that out for us.
Yeah, it's fun. I do always like looking though, because again, like being in sales, I'm usually at companies too that'll send out like, here's the birthdays and anniversaries this month, right? Like the birthday work anniversary email. And I always look during, like, particularly Capricorns. I'm like, I bet there's a bunch of us here. Yep, a bunch of us on the Rev team. So I always, like, kind of will look for things like that. Or, like, yeah, how many people in this, like, money kind of driven are, like, Capricorn, Taurus, or Virgo, to see how much that lines up. Actually, last night was having dinner with over at a friend of mine's house and had met the girl that he was dating for the first time. And we were really, really hitting it off, like just insanely vibing. And so I was like, what's your sign? And all the guys started laughing at me. When this girl had my exact same birthday, I was like, you see how I'm right?
No.
Yeah.
That's so
not exact, different years, but same day.
My friend who's been on the show before, Kristen, she's one of my best friends from home. Like, we are still friends even though I live 1,000 miles away. Both October 26th.
Yeah.
And 1 year apart.
That's
She's
crazy.
The only person I know with my birthday.
Ooh, see, I meet someone with my birthday almost every year.
When's your birthday?
January 12th.
I know a lot of people, but this I think might be because I get
Spring.
along with Capricorn.
That too.
But I know a lot of people. Like, my brother's January 18th.
It's also spring. So it's kind of biological. Like, it's 9 months after spring. It's not spring, it's the dead of winter.
Well, what's funny is I was trying to work backwards instead of just thinking like 3 months. What's 3 months forward?
Me too.
And then I was like, October, maybe like Halloween, and then like nope, that's not how pregnancy works. Like, what?
Oh, so yeah, would that be like Valentine's Day-ish?
Yeah, so I'm November 16th, which is I think almost exactly 9 months after Valentine's Day.
Well, and that's why there's all the memes about like around Valentine's Day that are like, don't, make sure you wear protection because we don't need any more Scorpios.
That makes sense. So, okay, interesting though. And this I don't know as much about to like be able to spout off some qualities, but there are differences a lot of times in like beginning of the season versus end of the season. So you're like an October Scorpio versus like a November Scorpio. I'd be interested.
I'm a cusp.
Yeah,
I'm a Libra cusp because I'm within those 3 days, which is interesting to read into too.
And that's where too, like once you do actually know the time, like that kind of ends cusps because you are or you aren't. But there are just there's a lot of like interesting crossover. Like, do we know what time you were born yet? Because I feel like I'm starting to get a picture of, I think like, I bet your rising is something like that is very friendly, like you're like gets along with a lot of people, like a Libra or a Pisces. And I bet that your moon, you said something earlier that made me think of what your moon was and now it's gone.
So I feel like that's just your text to her. I feel like it's either 1 something in the afternoon or 1 something in the morning. And I feel like it was like 1 something in the afternoon. I don't know that gets us any closer.
Where?
Portland, Oregon.
I mean, we could at least see what it tells us.
We could put in like a...
Like,
yeah, I think it's like
just, do like free birth chart.
So while she's looking... No, November, babe.
Yeah, so...
Yeah. She's like, no, my birthday's coming up.
So while she's looking that up, I can talk a little about the fixed cardinal mutable stuff I was telling y'all about before. So already talked about one way to classify your sun sign is with the elements. And another way to classify the same group of signs is whether they are with their modalities is what that's referred to. So whether they're fixed, mutable, or cardinal. So your cardinal signs, so you'll also notice if you look at things like the first day of winter is December 22nd. That's also the first day of Capricorn season. That's when Capricorns start. Same thing, like, so the cardinal signs are the signs that start around a solstice, or I just forgot the other term. It's either, or an equinox. So the beginning of a season. So we do actually break a lot of our months and things and like the way we view seasons and the way that we view the cyclical patterns of the earth into the same things that we look at when we look at astrology. So the cardinal signs are the ones that, so again, the beginning of winter is Capricorn. I think Aries is the beginning of spring. Cancer is the beginning of summer. July 22nd or June 22nd starts Cancer season. I'm just mixing up whether it's June or July. It's mostly like that. But, it's got to start in June. Yeah, because my opposite birthday is July 13th, and that's like towards the end of Cancer season. And then what's at the beginning? Is it Libra? Libra's at the beginning of fall, I think, because that's fall starts September 22nd, and Libra's right before. Virgo ends then, doesn't it? It does, yeah. Virgo's earlier in September, and then September 22nd, because that's why you're a cusp.
Yeah.
Because it goes Virgo, Libra, Scorpio.
Time is really hard.
It is, especially...
Like, right now.
I don't know if it's ever going to come back.
Dude, I don't think so.
Like, I used to be, now this is actually, maybe I'll start having better relationships because of COVID. Because exes of mine, or maybe they just shouldn't have done shady things, were always really annoyed at how good my memory was and how quickly I could be like, no, this isn't from then because I remember XYZ. So that had to have been 2 weeks before. Like I could lay events on a timeline just in my brain like you wouldn't believe. And I have lost all ability. I don't know if something was a week ago or 6 months ago anymore.
I can do timeline for the most part still, but I don't know, like, was that October or was that December of last year? That's the weirdest part about it. It's just very jumbled, but I know the order of events.
Yeah. We do the place where I take dance, we always start with a community question. So you just kind of like, you're supposed to talk to somebody that you don't know, and they ask a question. You say, talk about like this. And yesterday at first, the instructor was like, talk about like one of the, what's the one last thing you're going to do to finish out the summer? And we were like,
summer.
Brittany, it's October. It's October. And she was like, oh, okay, something that you're excited for the fall then. Mix it up.
To be fair, though, assuming this was in
This was in Austin.
Yeah.
Our seasons are not. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I'm from the Northwest. We have proper seasons there. In Austin, I feel like we've got 7-ish months of summer, a dabble of fall, here's winter, and then weird spring. We don't have it doesn't feel like we go through all these changes.
No.
To me,
it is usually summer right up until Halloween.
It is, yeah. I've always ever since moving here too, I'm just yeah, it's basically summer for half the year at least.
Oh, okay. So wait, we didn't talk about the thing that I said I was going to talk about, but we have your birth chart now. So what time did you do in the afternoon?
we put 1 p.m.
Yeah, I put 1 p.m. and we can always redo it for 1 a.m.
So this has your, obviously, sun in Scorpio, your moon in Pisces, which is another, so if the emotion stuff, that's another water sign. That was one of my guesses for your rising, so I'm just off. And then this says that your rising, which is the ascendant here, is in Aquarius.
That is what I should have said it, because I was I feel
that what
like
you were
Aquarius
thinking?
for her rising. Oops. I don't know what it is about Aquariuses that I've known, but they've always had. I feel like Libra, sometimes you read about it and they're supposed to be kind of bubbly. Mm-hmm. I feel like every Aquarius I've met has been very bubbly.
And they typically, I kind of am thinking of some of the Aquariuses that I work with and stuff and that I know pretty well. And I think they don't have that rep, but a lot of them are.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's you as a comedian, right? But the other Aquarius that I've been really close with, he's also a comedian. So it checks out.
So I'm going to read to you, I'm going to skip to the moon and rising.
Okay.
Well, here, I'll read going the wrong way, a little paragraph of Scorpio so that I guess we get the full picture. Yeah, context for the Scorpio sun. So not going to read the whole thing because we can look this up later, but Scorpios are known for their intensity. They're determined folk that absolutely throw themselves into whatever they do, but getting them to commit to something is rarely an easy task. In fact, it's better not to even try to get them to do anything. Solar Scorpios absolutely have their own mind, and their primary motivation is unlikely to be prestige, like their friends Capricorn. Okay, why are we just throwing me under the bus?
So when I was first telling her, I was yeah, we're going to have Megan on for this episode. And we've been wanting to do this episode since we started the podcast, pretty much. And so I go, yep, her name is Megan. You're going to love her. She's a Capricorn. And she was don't know what that means, but okay.
Cool.
I do really like, though, the memes that are making fun of the astrology girls, and they're oh, that's because I'm a cornucopia. I do laugh at those. So moving into the moon. So the moon represents maybe your moon, because to really get the moon, part of it is the moon is in a house for about 2.5 days. So it's that half day means something, the moon doesn't think in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's just that's why the time matters, because the moon may have moved. But so even if you're oh, well, I know within 12 hours, if that was one of the half days, it could have gone into a different place. But for the time that we chose, which we think could be right. So again, it says your moon is going to represent your emotional response, kind of your unconscious self-image. So lunar Pisceans. Okay, Pisceans. Not as difficult of a word as I thought that was going to be. Lunar Pisceans are known to be dreamy and not always in touch with reality. However, these people may not always show real-world savvy in day-to-day practical affairs. They make up for it with remarkable intuition. This can put themselves into anybody's shoes with extreme ease. On the plus side, this endows them with remarkable compassion and love. On the downside, with this apparent ability to break down boundaries, is that these people can easily lose themselves in the suffering of others.
Does that sound like you?
I already feel like it doesn't.
That doesn't feel... It's probably the wrong time, which is why. That's okay. We'll figure it out. But I feel like the part that does, being able to relate to others, and I can be extremely empathetic and take on others' energy, but overall, dreamy does not feel like me. Like, I feel like I'm like such a realist a lot of times. Like,
of all the words that I would use to describe you, it's like, no, and it's literally no offense. Like, I would not say dreamy. Luna Lovegood, I would say is dreamy. But Michelle Craig, I don't know about that one.
Yeah. So I was skimming through the Rising Aquarius, and this does feel right. So it says how unique and original the Aquarius Rising is. These individuals are just that, individuals, and they won't let you forget it. Often turned to for advice, these natives possess intellectual poise and savvy. They're often curious, quite learned, and anything that involves advancement of the human race holds appeal. It's hard to shock an Aquarius Rising. They've seen it all, or at least want you to think they have. In fact, they often enjoy shocking others. Not that they're
Oh, that sounds right.
Yeah. Most people with this ascendant are quite friendly and likable. Their personality quirks generally go over quite well with others. They generally give others quite a bit of freedom, accepting as a rule people from all walks of life as equals. And their somewhat cool and detached curiosity about all that goes on around them appeals to most people.
Sounds like they get along with everybody.
Sounds
not unlike someone I know.
and I am a very curious person. So I think, okay, that one is definitely more on than... What was the first one? The moon?
Your moon.
Yeah, the moon felt off, but that one definitely felt more on.
We're going to test drive the other time.
Okay.
And while we're doing that, going to get back into the modalities breakdown. So you have your cardinal, your fixed, and your mutable. So we said the cardinals are, it's Capricorn, Libra, Aries, and Cancer. Yep. Okay, yeah. I was like, wait, there's one for each element, so that has to be right. So there's one for each element. There is the earth element that is cardinal is Capricorn, right? Libra is air. So these are they start at the beginning of a change of season of either a solstice or an equinox. So these are your natural born leaders. They tend to like to be the one that creates kind of a big picture plan. They are very good at they're very comfortable. Rather, good is maybe not the right qualifier, but they're comfortable with coming up with a game plan, coming up with a strategy. Whereas, secondly, you'll see a lot of our past presidents and leaders are one of these signs too. Our cardinal signs, a lot Aries, and then just also a lot of people in political leadership are fire signs because they tend to like to be the center of attention. The Obamas, whom I personally love, Barack is a Leo, and Michelle is a Capricorn like me. So then your next sign then is your fixed sign. And so when you talk about where I say the cardinal signs, they like to come up with a plan. Think of that as big picture, and also more so they like to come up with it. They're not always going to be the best at making sure that all the pieces fit together and making sure that it gets executed. That's really your fixed signs. They like a clear plan and they want to follow it.
Well, that makes sense for leadership, right? Because a leader comes up with the plan and then they have their little minions execute it.
Minions, wow. As a leader and a Capricorn in sales, that's I probably have some minions. Yeah. So your fixed signs are going to be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And they like to follow out with the plan. Sometimes if last minute changes, don't always love them, right? They want to know the plan going in and they want to execute the plan and they want to stick to the plan, and they're very good at that. And then your mutable signs are a little more go with the flow. So that is your Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and I wrote this cheat sheet down because I know the cardinals based off of the equinoxes, but who am I missing? Who have I left out? Pisces. Pisces is the other mutable sign. So Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius. They're a little bit more go with the flow. Also, they can sometimes buck against having a plan. So that's why I say there's no this modality is only compatible with this one, but it's more that it can tell you a lot about So two cardinal signs together, they might have friction in knowing who's the one that's going to take over. A fixed sign and a mutable sign can sometimes have friction because the mutable sign wants to say on the road trip, oh, pull over, the biggest hot dog in the world, like, let's go there. And the fixed sign is like, no, we're not supposed to stop until we need gas in 156 miles, right? So that's more of something that, again, like part of the whole compatibility, like if you were looking for a cheat sheet, a chart, who can I swipe left on based on their birthday, who can I swipe right on? I wish that it worked that way. But these are things that can tell you more about, as you're having some conflicts, is this a conflict that I can maybe, now that I know this, talk and work through? Or is it maybe one that maybe you can't, right? Like maybe if you are one of these fixed signs, like maybe you'd want to be with the person that comes up with the plan, and then you execute the plan. And maybe you find that when you're with mutable signs, like it's too much chaos for you and you don't really like that, right? So it might teach you something that you apply long term, but also might just, teach you a little bit about how you're communicating in your current relationship.
I honestly love that because I feel like it is just really, it's a really applicable and useful way to look at things.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the other version of Michelle.
Yes.
Her other self, which is still the moon.
Oh, the moon stayed the same. It changed the rising.
Try it with doing like 1:45 p.m. Because you were saying like minutes can make a difference, and just see if that changes the Pisces. Or maybe I'm just... Yeah, try.
I mean, I also could have read a little more.
PM.
Now, yeah, still moon in Pisces, now rising Pisces. Let's read a little more about the moon in Pisces then. Because you did say that you feel like you're an empath. Sometimes.
Not always.
Which... almost always, like, an empath is going to have Pisces somewhere, either like in their sun or in their moon. So it says you get tagged as spaced out, which is, again, kind of something that y'all weren't going for. A lot more to them than meets the eye. Feel things out, rely on their intuition. If it doesn't feel right to them, they'll do otherwise.
Oh, I'm seeing sense of humor.
Dreaminess can mean plenty of moments of absent-mindedness.
There are moments where I wish my mind was absent.
Right.
That does not, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, Pisces moons are, like, it's a big daydreamer.
That's not me.
Yeah. We gotta get the time from Mom.
We'll figure it out.
Someday, stay tuned.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be for the follow-up episode.
Yes. Capricorn season.
Capricorn season. Now, while we're in here, though, the one other, if you do get into this, if you do know what time you were born, you do start reading into all of it, the other huge house the houses are something separate. The other big planet that comes into play is Venus. Venus rules, like, your relationships, particularly your romantic relationships. So if you take a look at that, and then your Mars, which speaks more generally to the way you fight and the way you fuck. So, your sexuality, but also, like, a lot of that passion is ruled by Mars, which is ruled by Aries, a very passionate sign. Yes, yeah. So, if you do go to Cafe Astrology, or there are others, just Cafe Astrology is, like, the, to do your own birth chart.
I like CoStar.
CoStar, okay. CoStar, another great one.
Which is an app.
Yeah. Both really, really good, give you a lot of detail and a lot of resources to continue to learn more. So if you do know what time you were born and want to put that information in there, like I said, a couple of other planets to look at. Venus controls your relationships, particularly romantic relationships. So where, what sign Venus was in is going to be important with how you relate to other people. And then again, Mars is sexuality, passion. It's like, I like to think of it as it's how you fuck and it's how you fight.
So my Mars is in Scorpio.
It's amazing.
And my Venus is Virgo. So I'm not really quite sure what that means.
Yeah. It essentially, and because then the planets, it's also like in part how the ruling house of that planet corresponds with where it was at the time. So like that is also maybe for a part 2 like deeper dive, but just more to kind of give the listeners, like, if they want to go find out more about this stuff. And what I'll say ultimately at the end of the day with compatibility, right? Like you'd asked earlier, is there anyone that if I found out their sign, I'd be like, no, I'd step away. I really wouldn't. And the big reason that I really don't recommend it is, at the end of the day, there's a much, much more complex, I think, pseudoscience that goes into whether or not a relationship works. Because again, can't be tested, right? But compatibility, whether or not you're with someone, there's a lot of like, does the chemistry work? Do your communication styles line up? Do your love languages line up? Are your attachment styles healthy together or not? And so ultimately you want to go in and you want to learn these things about your sun sign and your moon and your ascending and your rising, rather, how those work together, where your Venus is, where your Mars is, so that you learn how you show up in a relationship and the things that you need and the things that you maybe can compromise on and the things that you can't. And I think the more that you know those things, the easier it's going to be to find a relationship that's compatible for you.
Man, that's a mic drop. No, that's awesome. I would like to ask if you have any final words, but I feel like those were fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's it. That was it.
That was it. That is the mic drop. And yeah, no, seriously, thank you so much. I feel like this has been definitely among probably one of our most informative.
Cool.
Yeah, like this has been fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate being here. I had a lot of fun.
And so if anybody does want to slide into your DMs, first off, can they?
Sure, yeah. Just give me more than like a hey or you're hot.
It doesn't matter what your sign is. Nobody wants a hey.
Nobody wants a hey.
Nobody wants a hey. That is the universal agreement we all have. Yeah. Don't just say hey.
Yeah. Or like you're hot with a tongue and the dripping emoji. Like, I know, appreciate ya, but you're probably not going to get a reply.
Also, like, do you know how many times girls are told they're pretty? Anyways, where can people find you?
So I will say they can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is not astrology facing at this time. It's more me facing. So, but it is MMB. So like all M's, like us. So 2 M's and a B, _ that's _ me. So MMB, that's me. Because that is me, Megan Milner Britt. Should I say my full name on a podcast? Yeah, I don't really care. Please steal my identity. I have student loan debt.
Yeah, same.
So yeah, you can find me there. And maybe coming to a Hinge in New Orleans profile near you.
Ooh, love it. We can also do like a little go through the profile kind of thing. That would be so much
I would
fun.
love to do that.
Next time. Awesome. And Michelle, where can people find us?
They can find us at Swipe N the City across platforms. Depending on, I guess you're probably hearing this on your preferred podcast platform, but we're on the other ones too. You can find me at mcraigpdx and Marie at Marie R. Carlson on Instagram. And is that your Twitter? She tweets about The Bachelor.
Ooh.
Or Bachelor in Paradise, depending on the season.
Yeah, Marie R. Carlson across anything. It's my email, whatever you want to find me at.
Nice.
Steal my identity too and take my loans. I don't want them.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody for listening. I hope you've learned as much as we have. Cheers.
Bye, guys.